Good, how are you?
Go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular council meeting for January 23rd, 2019. Following the Pledge of Allegiance, the first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Council, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, council. Next item is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
I have one thing that was on there. On the P and Z minutes, there was an error that was caught by P and Z, and they were going to correct it. And it looks like that error is still on the draft minutes.
Where's it at, Counselor?
Let me see. It was the dead end and the deal end. Hold on.
They corrected it in a subsequent.
Yeah, December
Minute.
17th, under item 3. It reads deal end and rather than dead end, and they were going to make the correction, but it looks like it didn't get to our copy.
Yeah, deal end, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get that fixed before they get filed away.
And I'd like to request a few minor changes to my matters from the counselor in those minutes of January 9th. I've got an edited version here. I just wanted to include those suggestions that were made to me at my input meeting, my citizen input meeting,
Down
that
here
I had
on-
reported on last meeting.
Item 3, number D.
Correct.
I'll amend my motion to include corrections to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes of is it November 19th?
December 17th, I think.
December
Yep,
17th.
Yeah.
That refers to the minutes of the 19th.
Yeah, it's the November 19th
Yeah,
minutes.
That's where the mistake
Okay,
is.
but they made the correction December 17th.
Right, and they didn't correct it on the 19th.
Well, it's a correction of the meeting minutes for November 19th.
Okay.
It was approving the minutes in the 11/19, for the minutes of 11/19, on the meeting of December 17th. And with the addition of the corrected text submitted tonight by Counselor Holly.
I'll second the motion.
The change to it?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion's been made and seconded to make several changes to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes of November 19th, and to add verbiage provided by Counselor Holly for regular council meeting minutes of January 9th, 2019. She had some additions for her matters from counselor. It's, item 3, number D. With that said, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Excuse me. Next item is discussion items. First up is public comment on general matters. First person signed up to speak tonight is Tanya Mortensen.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. I and the rest of the staff have sat here for many meetings and listened to everything that is said and have sat quietly. We have heard from the public and we have heard from some of the councilors. I think it's time that you hear from us. I have worked in another municipality under 2 other mayors, and I have to say that Mayor Bassett is by far the easiest one to work with. Notice I said work with, not for. He works with his staff. He respects all of his staff and listens to our concerns and our ideas and never disrespects any of us. He helps out putting packets together. He helps hand out candy for trunk or treat. He removes snow for people who are snowed in, plus many other tasks that most mayors won't do. He also is in the office every day, something I've never seen from any other mayor I've worked for. But I'd like to address 2 separate and distinct issues. First, we as staff are the ones here for the day-to-day operations. We work hard. We see what time and effort is put into each day, each project, each application, and each and every IMPA request. I know how much overtime is generated from IMPA requests and that each of them do get filled. Don't forget, we're a small crew and we help each other, so we all know what work is put in here. It pains me to sit here and listen to the way things are being spun, saying that requests for information aren't being filled. That is not true. We cannot ignore requests from public or from counselors. Ignoring requests for public information is simply not an option for us. Second, the fear-mongering concerning the sewer ordinance is out of control. I'm now receiving calls from elderly people on fixed incomes who aren't anywhere close to the sewer extension, thinking that they're going to have to pay 20 grand to connect to the sewer, thanks to a video put out by Mr. Adrian Terry and a group called CORE. The sewer ordinance was passed unanimously in 2015 after more than a few public meetings. I must believe that the governing body that passed it wanted it enforced. Otherwise, why would they have passed it? That being said, the mayor and current administrative staff asked in 2018 if the councilors wanted the ordinance changed, and if they did, to propose what changes they wanted made. What we have heard so far is nothing. So if there is all this concern about the ordinance and you don't like it, then do what we do at P&Z and change it. Why all the hand-wringing when you have the power to change it or to leave it alone? Propose a change, vote on it, and then accept the vote. That's one of the jobs you are here for.
Thank you, Ms. Mortensen. Next person up is Cheryl Hupperts.
I was asked by Brad Hill to serve on Planning and Zoning back before John was mayor, and then soon after he became the mayor. As a citizen of Edgewood, I had not participated in town government. I really had no idea what was going on in this town, and I'm sure we have a lot of residents who are like me. I did not know if I would like John Bassett as mayor, but since John Bassett has become mayor, I've been impressed with his accomplishments. Immediately after becoming mayor, he had to hire a new police chief, a town clerk, a deputy clerk, planning and zoning, and a code enforcement. The previous administration did not pass down a lot of information to him, like the sewer violation. He has been involved with the town since its creation, and he is very knowledgeable about how town government works. He also knows the history of the town. The mayor has saved the town a lot of money by moving the town offices to Edgewood Elementary, with the council approval, of course, and hired in-house wastewater managers instead of contracting it out, and now the sewer system is working better than ever. He manages 31 employees. He has to hire and fire and conduct interviews. He interacts with state and county government. Effort is finally being made to clean up our town. We're seeing some cleanup around here. Mayor Bassett is paid a very small salary, $1,000 per month. I can't imagine doing all this work for that. But he spends many hours at the town office assisting in whatever needs to be done. He is always present at town events, helping out. The town staff enjoys working with Mayor Bassett. It is a shame that he's so disrespected and not appreciated by many of our members of our town. There were a lot of complaints about the December 19th meeting, but nothing that occurred during that meeting was as hateful as the words spoken on the January 9th meeting. Mayor Bassett never raised his voice to Councilor Abraham, but he did want some answers. Confrontation can be very uncomfortable. I did go back and listen to that tape audio. When I listened on the audio again, and I was not in the room, it wasn't, Big John and little Sherry. It seemed different. I do believe Councilor Abraham has caused unnecessary work for the town staff by asking for continued pulling of records of the sewer. The time spent pulling these records costs staff time, which correlates to tax dollars wasted. The staff and mayor spend valuable time pulling all the papers when there's other work to be done. The previous administration did not make effort to get their documents digitized, so the search is it's painful because they have to look through paper, every document, and read it to find the information that's needed. It doesn't come quickly. They are making efforts now to get their records digitized, and hopefully that'll be easier in the future to meet their EPRA requests. I would encourage Councilor Abraham or any other council member who needs information to come to the town and help search for the information you need. I've done that personally. I needed to find information and try not to tie up so much of the town's time, the town staff. Let's see. I did not approve of the comments made by Louis Abraham, Councilor Abraham's husband, or Bryce Simons. They were made without basis. Louis accused the mayor of rerouting the sewer system through his land for personal gain. The sewer system already runs down Church Street, and that happened long before John Bassett was mayor. They are currently installing collectors along the sewer line. This must be done so that residents and businesses can hook up in the future, and it needs to be done before the paving the road. Mayor Bassett's family property is located in the middle of Edgewood, so in order to get the sewer line to businesses, it will somehow have to round through his property or around his property. Are we going to take it miles down the road so we don't go around his property? That just makes no sense. When Hill Ranch Road was paved some years ago while Brad Hill was the mayor, I heard people complaining that, they were running the road to suit Brad Hill. Well, there's a lot of other people who live down that road, so maybe the road needed to be put in, regardless of the fact he was mayor. The Hills of Bassett and Hortons just happen to own a lot of land in Edgewood, and somehow or another they're going to be affected, or they may benefit from the roads or sewer. And they own it because their families homesteaded many years ago. So matter what, somebody's going to benefit. Mr. Abrahams accused mayor of charging unsuspecting citizens for the forced sewer hookup. The waste ordinance was written before Mayor Bassett took office in 2015, and from my understanding, Councilor Abrahams voted for the forced hookups. I don't understand that either. You voted for the hookups, but Mr. Abrahams is against it. From other meetings I've attended, that doesn't sound like it was the intent of the previous administration. So I suggest the council, as Tanya said, have some workshops and work on this ordinance and get it changed so that people are not being scared that they're going to be forced to hook up. Because that is what we do at P&Z. We get together, we work on Saturdays sometimes. The claims of being unethical, illegal spending, hiding information, sexual harassment has no basis. No proof was given to support the claims. This name calling is unacceptable. There was no name calling on December 19th. The accusations against Councilor Hawley, Councilor Abram, Mayor Bassett is what is shameful. Councilor Hawley never said a word in the conversation about the sewer. Councilor Hawley is busy trying to help the town staff. She volunteers at town events. She helps at town office when it's needed. She helps with the First Choice, the Blue Bus. She holds public meetings so people can express their concerns, and I compliment her for her volunteer work that she does. Using the sexist charge against Counselor Abrams was out of line. I'm sure Counselor Abraham had been a man, he would have gotten just as upset. As a woman, I resent pulling the sexual discriminating card against men just because you don't like what's being said. Counselor Abrams did lose his temper, which is never acceptable, but I'm glad he did apologize. Counselor Abraham, on the positive note, I do appreciate you've caught words and when we've worked on our P&Z stuff, and you've caught some of the things and had good suggestions. So thank you for that. And it's always good to have a fresh eye to look at things, because when you're in the middle of the project, you don't see things. I encourage Counselor Abraham and Amia to spend more time at the town office to getting to know the staff and seeing firsthand the work that they're being done. They work together, they work hard, and we have a good staff. Mayor Bassett, I encourage you to make copies of every letter that comes from NMED and provide it to the council meetings. That way, it's right in front and nobody will think you're hiding anything. The town meetings that were held here for the comp plan were amazing. We had some exciting meetings with the community. People worked together. We had great ideas, and it's great to see people work together. And I'm praying that this council can begin to work together and get some good things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hubbard. Next up is Linda Burke. That would bring up next Janelle Turner.
Mayor, councilors, we in Edgewood have a lot of exciting opportunities ahead, and I deeply appreciate your giving me a chance to be a part of that once again. Meeting with the Comp Plan Steering Committee recently and hearing from people at the workshops was truly inspiring. And now I'm looking forward to working on the industrial zone changes and trail design standards with the commission and with the town staff. And I want to add that I too deeply appreciate all of the work that they do for the citizens of Edgewood, for the governing body. I've never, ever seen such a group of people with so many varied talents, and I truly appreciate the work you do. I hope that this mayor and this council will coalesce into a team that works for all of Edgewood. But in order for that to happen, you as individuals may find yourself in the difficult position of having to give up some of your individual agendas, things that are worthwhile perhaps that you like to work on, but maybe don't coalesce well with your working with the public, as a member of the public body. I know from experience it's not as severe on the Planning Commission, but there is an adjustment to make. And for you, Mayor, and for you, councilors, it is even more difficult, but it's even more important for you to do that. I want to state for the record that I have collaborated with Councilor John Abrams on a variety of town issues beginning in 2008. Mayor Bassett and I served on P&Z with our terms overlapping for about 3 years. In spite of agreeing to disagree with both on a number of occasions, I have never felt that doing so affected our ability to get work done. And in fact, I would do more than that and say I have learned from my arguments with both. I have never seen any evidence when working with them that they discriminate against other people on any basis. However, I will say this about both gentlemen. Neither has much patience with those who refuse to do teamwork. If you're ready to carry your end of the load and work as a team, they will work with you. And that will be regardless of your past history. I suspect that their preference for team players affected the sense of exasperation that some people detected during the December 19 meeting. However, I will say that the vilification that was heaped upon them and on Councilor Hawley, for what reason I cannot ascertain, it was just unacceptable. And it's been on social media as well. This is undignified and it's unbecoming to the town. So I call on anybody who's stirred this up or members of the public who've participated to please stop. It is not clear to me what Councilor Abraham's intent was in leaving that meeting or in playing the victim card. What I do know is that as a member of the council, she forms part of the town's official voice. And what she has in effect done is send out a message loud and clear that John Abrams, and John Bassett may not treat women as equals when it comes to accountability. I find that idea insulting. Any person, male or female, who expects to be taken seriously must be willing to accept responsibility for his or her actions. Councilor Abraham, I am asking for you to apologize personally to Councilor Abrams and to the mayor for your actions. We pay you to be here in your council seat voting on matters, and when you leave, when you boycott meetings, that hurts the process. And I would like to close with my reiteration of what others have said about the wastewater ordinance. My understanding is that that ordinance is governed in its structure and some of its requirements by the Clean Water Act, which is a federal law. I have heard varying opinions in the past about whether or not the town can exempt a class of residences from it, but I would like to ask you to look into the possibility that we can do more in the way of exemption of certain classes. For example, existing residential. Again, I don't know if it's possible, but I think it would do a lot to dispel some of the ill feeling and the fear in the community. And the last thing I wanted to say with this is there has been some fear-mongering on social media. I have had people come to me personally. It's one thing to try to gin up support to get out to meetings, but when you're scaring elderly people who live alone, have health problems, live on a fixed income, it's making people physically ill. It's frightening them, and that needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Next person signed up is Monica Parker.
Well, most people here have already said the words that I really wanted to hear. I'm a new citizen of Edgewood. I've lived here for over 45 years, but this is the first year that I've been a citizen. And it's been a hopeful year for me, a very hopeful year. I read the paper, and I thought, well, maybe I'm late to this, but I don't think I am from the comments. But what I did after I read the paper, excuse me, I'm missing my copy. Was I listened to the audio of both meetings, the December 19th and also the January 9th. The December 19th meeting, I thought from the comments in the paper, were we listening to the same meeting? I didn't attend the meeting, so I realized that maybe there wasn't a visual involved for me, but just from what I listened to, the worst I heard is I think John said crap after the end of 20 minutes. This was a 20-minute back and forth. And Mr. Abrams finally, broke it up, and he was also cordial until he finally kind of lost it, but I didn't think he was that bad at all. I just think they were just kind of tired of, someone said bickering, which means talking about, unimportant items over and over and over again. And maybe they weren't that important to Ms. Abrams, and I'm sure they are important to some people, and I don't mean to diminish you in any way for what you feel is important. But I do feel that the meetings were taken totally out of, just unreal on the paper. I'm hearing now that it's scaring older people. And I guess my one question to all of you is how are you ever going to resolve this between yourselves? How are you ever going to, I don't know, if coffee would help, just, getting together, having a meeting among yourselves without having this stuff around you, maybe getting to know each other better. I know the histories of everyone here, and they're long. And wow, some of them, it's difficult. You've got a lot of, water underneath that bridge, all of you. And I do too. But anyway, I'm hoping, as a new citizen of Edgewood, that you can work this out, that all of you can try and you don't have to agree, but you do need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Next person up is Chris Orr.
Mayor Bassett, honorable council members, my name is Chris Orr, and I'm here to talk about South Horton Road. When we made the decision to move to Edgewood, we had two requirements: no HOAs and a paved road to our house. We found that in Coyote Crossing Estates. However, that changed December 20th when the town decided to remove the asphalt on South Horton Road from Camino Coyote up to where it meets the frontage road in front of the daycare center. As you can imagine, that took all of our neighbors by surprise. We had no warning that this was going to happen. Calls were made to City Hall, where the neighborhood was first told the pavement was in a state of disrepair. That was later upgraded to a dangerous situation. Having spent more than 22 years working in the Public Works Maintenance Division, some of which was in roads and right-of-way, I'd have to disagree with that assessment, and I'm sure all of our neighbors would also disagree. We are now faced with a muddy, dangerous, slick mess every time we leave our house. We've had to cancel an RV trip because we're not confident our motorhome would make it through the mud, and if it did, it would be a muddy mess when we arrived at our destination. I was also just told this afternoon by another neighbor who is now storing his RV off-site because he's afraid to get his RV into the neighborhood. We now make the decision to leave or not leave our house depending on what we think the road condition will be. This has negatively impacted everyone in our neighborhood. Our question is why a perfectly good road was removed and when will it be replaced? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. I would just say to you, thank you for your comments. What happened there was that road was deteriorating somewhat, and we had laid in the funding and stuff to chip seal it and stuff, but we decided to go and try to chip seal all the way from the frontage road clear to Dinkle. Somewhere in our funding was a chunk of change that needed to be used by the end of the calendar year. That's what prompted the speed, the hurrying up and on it. We dropped the ball if we didn't get enough information to you people ahead of time, and I apologize for that, but it was just simply a thing. We were running up to that, and based on our last 3 or 4 winters, we didn't think anything would be happening. So chalk it up to, I mean, as far as the moisture and that, maybe we ought to grind it up every year, but we'll get to it as fast as we can. We hope we end up with a better product coming out all the way to Dinkle when we're done with it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person up is Louis Abraham.
I'm an unpaid speaker, and my wife wished I wasn't up here. And I go back to Bassett and Holly for their non-apology for the way you allowed the December 19th meeting to go. You started it, and you didn't finish it. And I think Bassett and Holly both owe Councilor Abraham and the public an apology. Thank you, Councilor Abrams, for your apology. And I want to thank you all for giving me an additional 20 more town councils to attend after you usurped the people's authority to decide to serve them, who would serve them after March of 2020. Shortening your terms by approximately 60 days would have been more practical, wise, and prudent than extending your terms by 10 months. I see this as a power grab by greedy, self-serving politicians. To further stain your reputation, there's a blowhard who's defined as a person who blusters and boasts in an unpleasant way, or a local blowhard, i.e. a politician, who's the brains behind your operation, who's going around publicly calling Counselor Abraham Counselor Foghorn. Think about it, a blowhard calling someone a foghorn. Unbeknownst to the blowhard is that she was quite accurate in her descriptive. The American Heritage Dictionary of the English language defines foghorn as a warning signal. It's used to cover in the cover of darkness or fog to sound an alarm, a warning signal. I'm sure it was intended as a derogatory statement, but in actuality, don't take my time.
Order.
Don't take my
I
time.
understand that. Let him finish.
I'm sure it was intended as a derogatory statement, but in actuality, Counselor Abraham is sounding a warning signal that all may not be well with Edgewood governance, and as such, she is determined to do her duty to protect Edgewood's best interests. A counselor's job is to protect his or her constituents and not personally profit from the position for which you're elected. Harry S. Truman said, "No man can get rich in politics unless he's a crook." Truman was the 33rd President of the United States, serving from 1945 to 53. So I have to ask again, what are you afraid of? It has to be, what are you afraid that Counselor Abraham is going to uncover? It has to be illegal, immoral, unethical for you all to gang up on her as she just requests information so that she can make decisions on how to vote. I'm still waiting for a public apology from all of you and to the public, for Counselor Abraham and the public, for your December 19th antics. Thank you.
That's the last person signed up. Is there anybody else here who'd like to speak that didn't sign up? Seeing none, we'll move along. Next item is matters from the counselors. First up is Counselor Jaramillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we should put these agenda items in B in a random number generator and mix them up next time. It's hard following some of these statements. So going first, I'll go first, and just wanted to comment back on a few things. First of all, Tanya, I thank you so much for coming up and bringing your perspective and some of the staff. And it's important to hear from you all as well, so I really appreciate that. And the last meeting, I think I stated something to the effect that, no one is all bad or all good. And certainly, we've recognized that the mayor has very good qualities as well. And so I think that is, at least on my part, recognized. As far as your comment in relation to that the employees or the administration hadn't heard anything back on the ordinance, I did just want to make sure that we all have a plan to get that on the agenda here. And that was already, I planned to make this comment anyway, just that we need to get the ordinance on the agenda for editing. I believe it was last May, early May of last year, when we had kind of a long comment time about the sewer. And after that, we did have some meetings, and Carla brought forward, the option of changing the ordinance, and she had some very good ideas. And since that time, I have spoken to a couple people on the team about, Maybe it's grandfathering in. Maybe it's when there's a significant remodel. Maybe it's when the house is sold. Maybe it's, like all these different options. And so on my part, I have talked to administration, but I think that the time really is probably just now to get action on that ordinance because, and this was my sense this afternoon after seeing on the Nextdoor app that some people were getting an email, which I haven't seen and didn't know about. But if people are, scared without the proper facts, then, that's something that I said last year as well, that, the long-term vision in the plan just really needs to be out there because there is misinformation out there. And that's why it's okay, you guys, it's okay for us to have these discussions. We can't do it over coffee because that's violation of Open Meetings Act, but we can just have civil, discussions and decisions here and be, leaders for the community so that there is that clarity that people are looking for. And so healthy debate with that, I think that would be good. And again, just respecting each other is what I'm hearing a lot of people say. And then someone else, I think it was Cheryl, that said, oh no, it was Ms. Turner that talked about accepting responsibility. And really that's what we have to do here. I mean, you all know that once the decisions are made, and it's not too late to change the ordinance. We know that. Carla brought that up and, like I said, had some good options. So we can still change the ordinance, take responsibility for that direction that the town is being, led in, hear from the public, of course, and move forward from there. And a lot of progress has been made already with the contracts and the construction and the decisions that have already been made as far as going down Church Street. So I don't look at this as as going backwards in any way, but just to provide that clarification and information to the public, that's really important. And then to hear from them as well. So let's see if I had anything else to comment on. I think that was pretty much it, just making sure that we get that pretty soon here on a future agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person's Counselor Abraham.
Okay, it's been suggested that I apologize to the members of this council for the problems I have created. And I will apologize. I'm sorry that you guys feel like I have created so many problems. One of the things that I do need to state, though, is I need information to get my job done. When I find out things that are presented here from a member of the public, or I read in the newspaper, perhaps, that, oh, we don't need to worry about fines, that we're not going to be charged any fines. Well, as a member of the governing body, it would have been nice for me to know that. The other part of that is I have a concern that, is this in writing? The person who said this is no longer employed with NMED, I would like to have information. That's what I'm looking for, is information. Where are we going? I told Carla 2 years ago that if I understood the plan, how we were going to pay for it, what the eventual outcome was going to be, I could probably get behind the plan. The problem is I haven't been told anything about the plan. I hear things from the newspaper. I hear things, I've asked for many, many months to get a monthly wastewater report on our agenda. So I'm going to ask, I've been told that the way to get that done is to take a consensus. Would the majority of council members like to have a monthly wastewater report? I'm put it out for consensus. I know I would like one.
I think it's a good idea.
Don't we already file reports with?
No, brought to council for our information.
I just ask, are you talking about like a department report?
Yes.
Like the library or the police
Yes.
department, right?
It could be in the consent agenda. But we have yet to be able to get that. And I think it's an important issue. Wastewater is an important issue. And the fact is, all kinds of people have said one way or the other about this or that, the wastewater, the map. The map is out there. It has been created. We spent $732,000 creating this collection design, and now it's being built. I mean, you can look and see where your house lies. Has the line already been built? Has it not? I mean, it's as simple as that. That's information that needs to get out. And, you know, we do need to change the ordinance. But the other part of that is, why are we designing residential collection lines if we're not going to make anybody hook up? So those are my comments for tonight. I'm sorry that I've stirred up a hornet's nest, and I hope in the future we can find ways to get this information to council and to public. Thank you.
Counselor Abrams.
I'll pass.
All right, I would like to mention, as reported in the Quarter 2 Fiscal Year 19 Librarian Report, I'd actually like to give a shout out to our Edgewood Community Library for being selected to host a summer reading program training in November. It was offered by the New Mexico State Library for fellow library peers. In addition, staff from the U.S. Representative Ben Ray Lujan's office hosted a congressional mobile office hours in our library in October to assist constituents and hear their concerns. I just want to acknowledge our library. It's an unheralded jewel in our community, and I'd like to shine a spotlight on its value and on its dedicated staff. I'm just so pleased that we've got space that's being used for a number of different purposes. I'd also like to report on the new First Choice building. It is now scheduled to open in mid-February. The weather at the beginning of the year delayed granting of various certifications, including one for occupancy. So they're a little bit later getting in than they had planned, and the grand opening is anticipated sometime the end of March. I also want to mention that last night Santa Fe County held a public meeting at the fire station to review proposed amendments to the Sustainable Land Development Code. I was the only Edgewood resident in attendance, but I thank them for making the trek down here to our end of the county to offer this public meeting. There will be 3 others scheduled in January in the northern part of the county, and if you need more information, I've shared that with Tanya Mortensen in the Planning and Zoning Office, or you can contact me. Finally, I have some prepared remarks that I would like to read. All right. I'm going to reintroduce myself to you folks. I ran for a position on the town council to serve my community. I had recently retired from Sandia Labs and thought my talents, education, and experience would be put to good use on the council. Last year's municipal election was the first time I had ever run for elected office. I was excited about the opportunity to demonstrate my commitment to community and dedication to progress. Perhaps I was naive, but my vision was that if we all pulled together in the same direction, we could accomplish great things on behalf of the citizens of Edgewood. Those calling for my resignation do not know me. They have never had a conversation with me, though I have made myself available. I have held 3 citizen input meetings since being elected in March of 2018. I can count on one hand the number of individuals who have been to more than one of my open houses, where I provide an opportunity for citizens to ask questions, offer suggestions, express concerns, and share ideas. I am the only counselor who has made themselves available to the public in such a format. I would prefer to have a conversation with you, so you can form your opinions through a personal interaction rather than by comments circulating on social media. I know the mayor and town staff are also available to answer your questions or address your concerns in person. I encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity to get to know your town staff and elected officials as fellow neighbors and community members. We are all here to make Edgewood a prosperous and welcoming community. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration and a master's in library science. I worked in state government as a bank examiner. I can analyze financial statements and reports. I've been a reference librarian and researcher in Albuquerque's main public library as well as in 2 technical libraries, one at the Air Force Research Laboratory and the other at Sandia Labs. I take the time to inform myself and do my homework before the meeting is called to order, so I show up prepared to do my job at the council meetings and make effective and efficient use of our time. I make decisions based on logic and facts. That is why I must address the baseless claims of, quote, illegal spending and unethical, immoral ways that were made at the January 9th council meeting. I would like to share with you some of the cost-saving decisions implemented by Mayor Bassett's administration that you might not be aware of. Number 1, the community library was moved to its current location in part to get out from under a $5,300 per month rental payment. That's $63,600 a year that we were paying for the library space in the old building. The 30-year lease of the former Edgewood Schools North Building, where both the library and the town offices are now located, is just $10,000 a year. Number 2, the town purchased the old county fire station for $1 from Santa Fe County to relocate our police department, which had outgrown its former building. Number 3, the previous town administration had a $1.2 million New Mexico Finance Authority loan earmarked for new construction that the town was paying interest on. Those funds were not enough to build anything. So Mayor Bassett and Clerk Treasurer Juan Torres decided to pursue a revision of the loan terms to repurpose those funds to be used to remodel government facilities for town use that had already been paid for by taxpayers, i.e. the fire station and the school building. This is an example of how the current administration is seeking creative ways to stretch your taxpayer dollars. Were you aware that the State Tax and Revenue Department had only the original town annexation, as of 1999, on its rolls? Under Mayor Bassett's administration, all the annexation documentation since the incorporation of this town was provided to the Tax and Rev Department, and many meetings were held with various governmental entities so that the town is now collecting tax dollars not only from Santa Fe County, but from Bernalillo and Sandoval counties, where property falls within Edgewood's town limits. This oversight by many previous administrations has now been corrected, enhancing our town coffers. Regarding the wastewater treatment facility, constructed in 2008 and operational in 2010, there are 63 commercial customers connected to the system, including the 80-room hotel. The town was experiencing problems with the membranes and screens at the facility, but was recording great effluent results. In discussions with NMED, the town was informed the state would not provide funding for a new plant because it is not failing. The current town administration has to deal with the hand it has been dealt and implement phased improvements pending funding. Every year since Mayor Bassett has been in office, the top-ranked ICIP, Infrastructure and Capital Improvement Plan requests, have been for wastewater system improvements to build and grow the town's infrastructure to attract development, thereby diversifying and enlarging the tax base. Much has been said about forced connections to the sewer line, and most of it is wrong. Wastewater Ordinance Number 2015-03, which includes a mandatory connection requirement in Section 2.03B, was approved by a unanimous vote of council on August 19, 2015, and amended by another unanimous vote of council on February 3, 2016. Both votes occurred under the Mayor Hill administration, with Councilors Abraham and Abrams casting votes of approval. Now Councilor Abraham expresses her strong opposition to the mandatory connection requirement, but has done nothing to propose any changes to this requirement, even after Deputy Clerk Salazar provided samples of various options from other municipalities and distributed them to council at least 6 months ago. In closing, as in any group of individuals, we will have differences of opinion, but each of us must ask ourselves if the actions we take as members of the governing body, both in our public meetings and as elected representatives of Edgewood outside these chambers, are in the best interest of the town as a whole and for its greater good. But I'm sorry, I need to follow up on something that Commissioner Huppertz had to say. She had addressed the many requests for information by Councilor Abraham, and I just wanted to relay my experience with some of that. I have wondered myself why Councilor Abraham would not go to the office herself to pull the information that she wanted, rather than burdening the staff with her many requests. I know that staff has come in on weekends and incurred overtime to respond to Councilor Abraham's request for information. I happened to be in the town office during the time that Mr. Torres was busy spending his time at the police department trying to get their internet and communication systems up and running. And at that time, we had no administrative assistant, and the staff was trying to pack to move into their new offices here while conducting their regular duties. Since I was in the office, I had some free time. I said, hey, how can I help you guys? And they said, our highest priority is responding to Councilor Abraham's request for information on the cleaning service. And so they told me what was needed. I went to the file. I was pulling the documentation. I was disassembling the stapled packets. Everything had to be fed through the copier, single sheet, because it was all different sizes. I had to reassemble things and refile things. I spent hours filling Councilor Abraham's request. And then I come to find out that she had filed a complaint with the New Mexico Attorney General's office about an IPRA violation, that she did not receive the information in a timely manner from the town. And it just blew my mind. I thought I was in there working and helping, and I felt it was something that she could have done on her own. And here she is filing a complaint against us with the Attorney General. And it's costing us taxpayer dollars to pay our attorney to respond to that complaint. So I'm done with my remarks, and I'll pass it on to the mayor.
Thank you,
Mayor, I
Counselor.
would like to respond.
No, let's go on. No, we've heard enough of all that. Next item on the agenda is matters from the clerk treasurer. Mr. Torres.
Mayor, Council, excuse me, I would like to apologize to you. I wasn't able to finish the bank reconciliation in time, so the financials will come the first meeting next month, so I just wanted to apologize for them not being on this one. With respect to an update on the sewer line design, we could not get the engineer scheduled to come out tonight, so we're going to have him also come out on the 6th and give everyone an update. And just for your information, we actually did send a notice to the contractor to suspend the project for now, just with all the storms in the winter months. It's just better, just let's suspend the project instead of have, weather delay after weather delay and having them continue to submit requests to delay the project. We just decided to suspend it for 33 days, and we'll assess it again later, but that'll all be brought forth at the update on the 6th. And that's all I have.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Torres, at the last meeting, I suggested that we contact Santa Fe County and somehow or another talk with them, negotiate with them to have their road equipment housed down here. Has anybody contacted Santa Fe County or our commissioner?
Yes, Mayor, Council, I have contacted them, and I'm waiting for them to give me a response one way or another.
Okay.
They were going to look at what they had available to put down here. I offered the yard said they could put some equipment in the yard if need be.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who weren't here last time, what I'm talking about is the problem Santa Fe County had with getting snow removal equipment to southern Santa Fe County. It took them a number of hours, I think 5, to get any of their equipment this far south. And it took the better part of a week to get any equipment to the east side of Santa Fe County. And there were some residents over there that were trapped behind snowdrifts for almost that period of time, 4 or 5 days. So I'm hoping to be able to get some of Santa Fe County's equipment down here to maintain county roads and offer some space to store that equipment should it be needed. So that's what we're talking about. Thanks.
Thank you. Next item is matters from the mayor. I too wanted to speak to all the goings-on we've witnessed these last 2 meetings, and if you'll indulge me for a second, I'm going to need some visual aids. I'll set them down. So, I have sat quietly now for 2 meetings, listened to every Tom, Dick, and Harry in here get up and speak their piece. I've listened to myself be called on to resign, apologize, and every other damn thing. Council, I don't want any interruptions from any of you. I've listened respectfully. I want to say my piece. What we are dealing with here and talking about began in December when I tried to engage with Councilor Abraham, and I'm not engaging with you tonight. I'm just speaking. Don't answer. I wanted to find out what her obsession with the wastewater plant was all about and see if she couldn't back off a ways so that my staff and I could better work with the people at the Environment Department. I am the mayor. I know that bugs hell out of some people, but that's who I am in this situation. When I talk to them people at the Environment Department and they can't figure out who they're dealing with down here, I think I have a right and a responsibility to find out if there's a problem with me asking her to back off a little bit. I have no problem with her seeking her own information, but she shouldn't represent herself as the town. That, of course, led us to World War III at the last meeting with all the negative comments coming in. So I want to speak my piece and see if I can get a little more insight to share with you people to help understand this problem we have. Let's take Councilor Abraham and those comments in that newspaper article. That one there blows my mind. In December, we went over this about her and getting information regarding the status of Edgewood's discharge permit violations in the operation of the wastewater facility. But says the mayor was unresponsive. So, let's see what the mayor and her said. I've got the copies of the emails right here. And we come to the morning of November 26, 2018 at 10:32 a.m. from Sherry Abraham at Comcast.net to Mayor Bassett at EdgewoodNM.gov. Good morning, Mayor Bassett. I would like you to send me a copy of the response to the notice of violation dated September the 5th, 2018 from Town of Edgewood and any correspondence from NMED which refers to that notice of violation. I would also like to request the details of the wastewater spill that was mentioned at the November council meeting. So, that evening, November 26th, 6:18 p.m., from Mayor John Bassett to Sherry Abraham at Comcast.net. Councilor Abraham, I have placed the information that you have requested into a yellow manila envelope with your name on it and placed it into the councilor's mailbox, located at the far west end of the counter on the north wall of the reception area next to the printer. Please feel free to come by the office and pick it up at your earliest convenience. Then we move to Wednesday, November 28th, 12:48 p.m. This one comes in from Sherry Abraham on her council email. Mayor Bassett, please confirm that you received my request for the response from Town of Edgewood to NMED about the notice of violation. That same day, November 28th, this time 7:18 p.m., from John Bassett, Mayor of Edgewood, nm.gov, to Sherry Abraham. This time I included all the council members, governing body members, and staff members, and I also included in Sherry Abraham at Comcast.net. Councilor Abraham, in response to your inquiry earlier today asking me to confirm receipt of your request for information, which came to me from your town email address, sherryabraham@edgewoodnm.gov, I'm forwarding to you this reply which I sent you on Monday via your personal email address, sherryabraham@comcast.net, from which your request originated. As you can see from my original reply, the information was gathered and placed into a manila envelope and then placed into the mailbox marked Councilors. As noted, the mailbox in question is located in the reception area of the new town hall. Like any normal person in this situation, I hit the reply button in order to respond to the sender from the email address from which it originated. In the future, may I suggest that you confine your many email inquiries to your town-provided email address so that mix-ups like this do not occur and I am not forced to waste precious amounts of my limited free time sorting out your requests and guessing which email address I should direct a reply to. Your cooperation toward this end would be greatly appreciated. Next day, Thursday, November 29th. Mayor Bassett, I would like to request in the future all mail for me be placed in my council box outside the town hall building, as was previously done. Sincerely, Councilor Sherry Abraham. So we communicate. We exchange information. Then the story comes out in the newspaper. Unresponsive. Not unresponsive. Somebody mentioned here a little bit ago about the maids. The maids. February 21st, 2018, Juan Torres informed us that he thought we were probably spending too much money on the maids. Maybe we could do a better job if we had our own in-house help and paid them instead of contracting with the maids. February 23rd, Councilor Abraham launches an investigation. On it goes back and forth, over and around. Come to June 6th, 2018, a job description was proposed, and on June 20th, the council, this governing body, approved a job description. At that very moment, her work should have stopped. The council had made a decision. This is a problem we run into frequently with her. She provided us something called 52 Tips for Successful Public Service, some ideas on how to govern better. Number 22 kills her. Once a majority decision of the governing body has been made, respect that official position and defend it if needed, even if you personally disagreed. Time and again, this council, this governing body, will make decisions relating to them wastewater lines, other stuff at the wastewater plant, you name it. When that council speaks and makes that decision, that's it. The end of the line. But not for Councilor Abraham. Time and again, we go back and revisit those old decisions. So I think when I see something like this that says mayor is unresponsive, that's a lie. That's an outright lie. There's nothing else to call it. I have watched my staff prepare thick responses to her. I think in Juan's office, you've got a stack of paper in there maybe that thick, just of the emails. That's not including the attachments that go with them. We have made every effort we can. By law, we cannot refuse. But like I said on the maids, June 20th, a job description was approved. End of discussion. She comes in with an IPA request on June 25th. Then you go along and come up to August 6th, she files a complaint with the Attorney General. In her own complaint, says, I got the information, just didn't get it when I wanted it. September 5th, she delivers a big report to us all. And what does she say? Same thing Juan Torres told us in February. We may have spent too much money on the maids. Maybe it'd be better if we didn't. By that time, we had already gone out hunting for somebody to hire and put in that job. So we had a non-issue that had nothing to do with anything being kept alive and stoked for no good reason that I could see, but we had to deal with it, and we have to pay the attorneys to mop up the mess. So the newspaper article, again with the newspaper article. Newspaper article and Mr. Abraham have all implied that little Sherry Abraham's just out there working like, some Cape Crusader or something, trying to ferret out malfeasance and corruption wherever she can find it. That's not the Sherry Abraham I know. This is stuff that I worked on during the Brad Hill administration. This was a simple subdivision thing that happened. We handled this one. It's a simple 2-lot subdivision. We got it done in less than 50 days. When they got in there, they started messing with everything, and they took a same simple little 2-lot subdivision, and it took the people, them Kashats, took them over a year to get that thing completed. I pleaded with, begged them, look into this. This is something stupid here. Never a word out of Sherry Abraham. This one over here is a little more egregious. This is the Markleys down at the Beehive. So they got the big idea back there in 2014 they was going to rewrite the ordinance, right? The zoning and the subdivision. They set out for over 8 months working to revise this zoning ordinance. They spent well north of $30,000, probably 50 to 60. The Markleys came in to set out and do the work on their apartment complex down there, those senior living apartments. They got held up because they found out they needed a zone change. So everybody's wondering, well, what's going on here with this? They actually sat down. They had planned on opening them apartments in the summer of 2015. They put an ad in the Independent, says, opening summer of 2015. They got held up. And it's like, well, what's going on with that? So we got looking into it. I did, because I was on P&Z, and they had been given, they'd already made a change very early in Brad Hill's administration to allow for multi-use in here so they could hook to the sewer. But when they set out in 2014 to rewrite the zoning ordinance, they grabbed up the wrong one. They spent 8 months and well north of $30,000 rewriting that. So when the Markleys went in to get their apartment job going, they got held up. In fact, they got held up a whole year. People got hurt by that. Incompetence, malfeasance, whatever you want to call it. Here's the sign that finally ended up on the Markley place. Project completion spring 2016. It was up in the summer that they actually got it finally going. Again, I go in. Oh, and look at the big crowd we've got out here every night, the Simons and Mr. McGill and all these. Yep. Where were y'all at then? Nobody's anywhere to be seen. I worked to an empty house. What we discovered on that was they rewrote the wrong ordinance. I pointed that out to Mr. Markley. He went in there and says, what gives? I provided him with the correct copy, and he went in there, chewed their butts out, and got it fixed. This was coming into 2015 and 2016. I was thinking about running maybe for mayor. In fact, I think when I talked to him the last there, I'd already declared. He told me, he says, you know, you ought to run for that. Says, you're the only one in there seems to know what the hell's going on. And I'm the guy on the back row back there. I'm not the clown sitting there with all his stuff and that going on every night like he knows everything. I figured all that out because I was on the P&Z Commission and I knew my ass from a hole in the ground. A lot of people didn't, including Councilor Abraham. I begged him, look into this. What the hell's going on here? Nothing. Not a thing. Dead silence. In this one, I begged him. I was going to provide him all this information, serve it up to him on a silver platter. Nothing. Now I'm told she's an avenging angel, out to clear up corruption and make everything right in the world. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't square with the Sherry I know. I begged and pleaded with them. You're making all kinds of errors. And this is only 2 of them. I've got others. Nothing. So now I learn she's an avenging angel. She's out there to sniff out corruption. She just needs a lot of information. By golly, she'll come through for us. She'll ferret it out. This is the stuff, the crap we followed. Juan Torres and I got in office. We laugh about it sometimes, that following that incompetent Hill Abraham administration is like being the guy in the circus that follows the elephants around, picking up crap load after crap load. We've about got it straightened out. And one of the things we inherited was the sewer. So we're going around, we're trying to work on that, trying to get that figured out. Along this last summer here, Councilor Abraham and some of her friends out here, they decided they needed to go visit the sewer. But to this point here, for those of you wondering, can we just find some way, a little effort there? Councilor Abraham has no credibility with me. I tried to work with her as a council member back in the Hill administration, couldn't get anywhere with her. So don't tell me she's this crime fighter now. Not going to believe it. Then there's the double standard. What about that? Ever since I've been in here, there's been a definite double standard applied by her to me. Everything I do has got to be double-checked, triple-checked, and just like with, she brings up at the December meeting, right? We told you not to go to P&Z. I provided them ample evidence of Brad Hill going to P&Z meetings. Didn't mean a thing. I can't do it. Everything with my administration's got to be double-checked, triple-checked. That's not fair. There's nothing that's happened on my watch that's anywhere near this stupid or egregious. And yet, every time I turn around, there's that double standard waiting for me. You need to do this, you ought to do that. We're back to old number 52 here. Time and again, the governing body here will make a decision, and we need to revisit it. One of her favorite whipping boys, of many, has been the sewer line that went in on Cactus in Maine. That one there, that just gnaws at her like nothing else. So she tells everybody now that every dollar that comes into this town should go to fix the conditions of that notice of violation at the sewer plant. So back in 2015, when they got the notice here from the Groundwater Quality Bureau, they had in place money and the notification to fix this stuff, right? Did they fix anything down there? No. They went over to Walker Road and built a collection line. Same thing we've done. Problem is, they had in their hand at that time this notice with the requirements on it, the conditions, they had that, and they had capital outlay money. They didn't use it. So here we end up with a situation of the double standard again. They go out and build collection lines. They don't fix on the wastewater plant. No problem. If you go back and look in the record, you're also going to find that the council didn't vote to do any of that stuff. It was all done administratively, shifting money around by the administration. There's no record in there of anything being done. Everything we've done has been done at meetings and stuff. In August of 2016, Councilor Abraham voted with the other council members to put that project on the ICIP list. It's there plain as day in these minutes. That was after town received several petitions from people that live in that area requesting it. Again, go back to Walker Road, nothing done in the way of a petition. That was just done for giggles, I guess. But again and again, I've had to listen quietly, painfully, to Tappan Mahoney says this and Tappan Mahoney says that. Good old Tappan Mahoney. He knows everything. Tappan Mahoney is the fella that started the rumor and all that. Well, this just being done for the Bassetts. That started on September 20th, 2017. We were in a meeting. He gets up. He's disgruntled. Oh, this is just being done for you. And of course, Councilor Abraham, she jumps right on board. She's all in with that. So let's see what Tappan Mahoney had to say about it. He submitted we had the request for proposals in December of 2016. He submitted one. The request was for proposals to design that sewer line that she's always screaming about that nobody knows anything about. He put in a proposal. Let me read you what he had to say about Cactus. We are intimately familiar with the planned service area, potential residential and commercial connections, and are prepared. Now, this is in December of 16. Mind you, right now, that job's not finished yet out there. This is December 16. We are prepared to complete engineered drawings for the Church Street service connection and Aspen Line extension to cross Church Street within 2 weeks of being awarded this contract. And the Cactus Road line extension within a month for the area identified on the back of our proposed cover, our proposal cover. Come on over a little bit. And here's another comment about Cactus Road. This is what he said in December of 16. Complete the Cactus Road sewer line extension to provide for immediate access of existing commercial and residential customers, provides the opportunity for the town to initiate the expansion of the reuse system and local broadband services offered in Figure 1 and make improvements to the road surfacing, provided the town has interest and agencies are agreeable. So what happened? How did we go from Tappan, all in favor of it, her voting to put it on the ICIP, and then suddenly it went south? How did it do that? Well, what happened was when the committee got together, ranked and rated the proposals, Dennis Engineering wasn't chosen. And then you can just see the downward, as it goes down, oh, well, he didn't get it. So basically what Tappan Mahoney done was try to extract political revenge on me by bringing up this thing, oh, that's just being done for the Bassetts. She voted to put it on the ICIP, but she jumped on board with him. Yeah, it's just being done for the Bassetts. They're the only beneficiaries of that. There are two petitions that we have that came in from people out there, including her friend Tom Torres. He submitted one asking for that area to be sewered. That's an issue that goes back clear to 2003. That's when Jeremiah Turner and my family, they run that first line under the new interchange there at I-40. And we started right in there. Hey, can you run a line up here toward the fire station, something in there? We've been at that, like I say, a decade and a half. I don't know how long she's been in the country, but our mission to get something done in there and try to make that last remaining quadrant of I-40 useful for development has been going on a long time. Now, she always says she's big pro-development. She ain't on that one. Her idea of pro-development is she's for development everywhere but on the Bassett Place. For her, in her mind, you develop Edgewood up and you leave the Bassett Place out. You go everywhere else around it. Doesn't make any sense to me, but that's how she looks at the world. Now, there's something else I want to explain to you people that you need to know. In this thing with the Environment Department, there are a number of bureaus that make up this Environment Department. We have had to deal with two of them. One of them is the Construction Programs Bureau. That's where Miss Judy Kale's located at. She's the woman you deal with whenever you have to go get money for construction projects. She's the one that hands out the money. The other one that we've now had to deal with is Groundwater Quality Bureau. Now, these are the people that sent us this thing here, the notice of violation. They're the people that issue the discharge permit, right? So we now have two bureaus we have to deal with and cater to and try to, meet whatever it is they want us to do. Now, why is that important? It's important because in 2016, when I got elected, right, in March, I got into office, and the previous administration already had this PER with Dennis Engineering going to redesign the whole sewer thing. So we went ahead and pushed ahead with that. Went to numerous meetings at Dennis Engineering, met with them, went over everything. We followed them right up to Santa Fe. And where did they go with it? He took us to see Judy Kale at the Construction Programs Bureau. Now, when I hear all the outrage from the posse back there, it turns out maybe Tappan Mahoney should have taken us over to the Groundwater Quality Bureau. Because when you look through here at that 2015 letter, he was copied on that. It's CC'd here. There's Tappan Mahoney, Dennis Engineering. There's Tom Torres, manager of EPCOR. He was CC'd on all that. They all knew about this stuff. So why didn't we get taken to that bureau and we could address those conditions? We weren't. Instead, we got took over to the Construction Programs Bureau, where they were going to ask for $10 million to build us a new sewer plant. Woman over there, she says, no deal. We're not going to do that. We spent money on you. You built that thing. Make it work better. Okay, that's where we have to go then. We wanted to, build a brand new plant, but they said no. What they did tell us was get busy and figure out what's wrong with it and, upgrade it and make it work. So that's where we headed. Now, in all of this stuff, you have a thing here from EPCOR, from Tom Torres. We asked them if they had any information. When we got the notice of violation, we asked them if they knew anything about it or if they dealt with anything to respond to it. And of course, he says no, they didn't have anything to do with it. He finishes up down here. He says, well, if the town had just done what they, Dennis Engineering said in their PER, he wouldn't be having any problems. He does cite the minutes of December 21st, 2016. So again, this is December 2016 when, we're dealing with the RFPs and all that stuff. Tappan Mahoney comes in, speaks to council about the PER, gives us an update on it. He finishes up down here. He feels the PER will be approved with conditions. Conditions will not be with respect to technical. That have to do with the financials and the need for the town to implement the wastewater ordinance. Also here it says the town will also need to show an increase in customer base through connections. Okay, here that is again. You need more customers, you need more effluent from residential. Okay, so we look around and that's, we've got an ICIP, and it's got 2 projects on it for increasing the effluent and stuff like that. It's Lower Church Road and Cactus Road, Maine. All been voted on, again, voted on, and we get the old thing, and once a majority decision been made, respect that official position. So we think, okay, we've got the green light here to go ahead with this. They need a project like that, we've got one. Not quite. Like I say, it goes along up until September of 2017, and then you have Tappan Mahoney come in and say, well, it's just being done for the Bassetts. And then old Sherry, she jumps on board and says, yeah, that's what I think too. It's just for the Bassetts. That's the only one that's going to. So from there on, now we got all the little rumors out there. Well, it's just being done for the Bassetts. No, there's a long history to it that predates all the people that don't know any better. But anyway, we come back to December. And the question I started out with, I'm trying to figure out what in the hell has got her so bound up in this sewer stuff. Doesn't make any sense. Stuff doesn't happen out there just machine gun one after another. It's going to take a little time. We talked to them ladies from the Environment Department. Then the one of them picked up and left. So that's shoved it back now when we're going to hear from them. So, you come with this thing where we're doing something wrong. It's in the newspaper article. How does it finish up? There's only 2 ideas about the council. We are power-driven bullies, or there's corruption, and we are not willing to be transparent. Always with that corruption. Again, doesn't fly with me. I lived through the Hill administration. That was tough. So, again, I couldn't get that night a reasonable explanation from her about why, she's just fascinated with that sewer system. So, in the absence of a decent explanation, I have to kind of take my own conclusions. And what I've come up with is pretty basic. Who's the beneficiary of her outlandish statements and behavior? Who stands to gain from it? The answer is EPCOR. EPCOR pops up again and again. And you'll recall, when we had them in here, and they were sending out their little propaganda flyers, what did it say on it? It says Edgewood can't afford to fix the failing wastewater system it has today. It says Edgewood has many pressing needs fixing the failing wastewater system. What failing wastewater system? I've got 2 operators here say it's working as well as it's ever been. But that's what they had to get across to us. There's a failing wastewater system. Again, we go back to the EPCOR stuff. Tom Torres tells us in May of 2017, we'd leave you with a plant in compliance with the permit requirements. Sounded to me like it was working. Of course, then we come along, and when we get the notice of violation, he's not so forthcoming then. It's, well, you should have done what they did in the PER. So it's like, what is going on here? This is getting silly. You just can't make an issue out of nothing. She tried that with the maids, failed miserably. So we come to this one. The answer is EPCOR. It's in their interest to tell everybody the town of Edgewood can't manage its wastewater system. How the hell is it going to manage a water system? So I think what we have here, what we're seeing that's led us to all this, because that wastewater, just can't get enough of it. We come to what is known as a 5th column. I looked it up on Wikipedia, and I want to read to you what a 5th column is. A 5th column is any group of people who undermine a larger group from within, usually in favor of an enemy group or nation. The activities of a 5th column can be overt or clandestine. Forces gathered in secret can mobilize openly to assist an external attack. This term is also extended to organized actions by military personnel. Clandestine 5th column activities can involve acts of sabotage, disinformation, or espionage executed within defense lines by secret sympathizers with an external force. So if any of you have noticed, there's a lot of work on YouTube lately, thanks to Mr. McGill over there. We see this effort being made now to put out a lot of disinformation. And so Sherry Abraham, she's leapt into the thing. She's all in for it. She's got her posse out here every night, and they're mounting a well-funded, very manic effort to discredit me and my administration. They say again and again, if you can't run your wastewater system, how are you going to run a water system? So they're trying to cast doubt about our ability to run the wastewater system and by extension, the water system. So to you people out there, this is what I'm going to tell you. In the days and weeks to come, we are liable to hear some pretty outlandish claims from them. In the vernacular of our times, it will be heaping helpings of fake news. We at the town will be working to counter the misinformation campaign and provide you citizens with the truth. And I hate to have to be brought to this point here over such a silly issue as the sewer, but remember what Franklin Roosevelt said in his inaugural air in 1933. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. That sewer's working out there. Mike, they're out there every day. They know it's working. Nobody has come along and said, well, it's not working. We got dinged for running the water outside the fence in an emergency situation. But I'm here to tell you that basically when they went out there, Counselor Abraham and her friends, and then they turned us in and got the violation there, I'm here to say that that effort backfired on them. The idea was to get us embarrassed, to hit us, oh, you got notice of violation. But what it did was uncover all that stuff from 2015 that the previous incompetent Hill Abraham administration failed to do anything to address. Well, they did address it. They gave Tappan Mahoney and Dennis Engineering a big task order, amounted in the end to over $200,000. Now, this is in 2015. Juan Torres has shown us the procurement code got passed by the legislature in 2013. Anything over $60,000 has to come to this body for their approval to go out for proposals. That didn't happen. Look in the record. There's nothing there. Council didn't act on it. In December, I asked Counselor Abraham, what did you do on that? She didn't know nothing about it. That's the way a lot of stuff happened in them days. Just like this stuff right here. Transparency, that's a joke. Counselor Abraham used to be on something called economic development. When I got elected, they says, let's get Counselor Abraham pointed back to that economic development. I said, well, what is it? It wasn't P&Z, it wasn't Parks and Rec. You know, we didn't have a class of economic development. I asked them, I said, well, do you all follow the Open Meetings Act? Nope. No, do you publish an agenda? Nope. Do you keep a set of minutes or anything? Does the public come to these meetings? Nope. Huh. So I decided I wasn't going to appoint anything to that because by my definition, if this town sanctions a committee, it's probably going to be meeting under the Open Meetings Act, it's going to publish agendas, and it's going to invite you, the public, in to listen to it. That didn't happen with that. So now I've got them out there screaming and hollering about transparency. I ask them, where the hell's the transparency then? Oh, well, they don't know anything about that because, per usual, they weren't there in those days. Nowhere to be found. Like I say, I had to play to an empty house nearly every night. You know who my companions were? The police chief and Nicole Maxwell from the Independent. That's who was in there them nights. A lot of crap went down. Nobody was there. I was there. I was doing my little part. Where was anybody else at? Nowhere to be found. And now I hear, well, let's all come together and hug it out, bitch. I don't think I've got that in me. I have seen stuff and been through stuff with that counselor where I couldn't get a damn thing out of her. But now I'm told she's an avenging angel. She's going to be there and she's going to set things right. She's going to root out corruption and incompetence. She wouldn't know corruption and incompetence if it bit her. That's what is here. That's what was going on when I got elected. Like I say to you people, that we're in a much better situation now. I've got honest people here. Everything we've done pretty much has been out front. Some stuff, it just hasn't worked out that way, but no big decisions have been made that the council and governing body haven't acted on. This sewer thing, just sewer. Like I say, I couldn't get a decent answer out of her there regarding what was her fascination with the sewer. So then I'm left, and what I come up with is EPCOR. We genuinely have an effort underway to discredit me, my administration, the town in general. If you can't run your wastewater plant, you can't run the water system. And you see evidence of that on that goofy East Mountain 411 and that goofy other neighborhood next door, or whatever they call the damn thing. It's there. They're putting it out there. It's going to pick up. We now have old women calling in wondering if they're going to be rooted out of their house and stuff like that. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. We will endeavor to provide you the truth and maybe respond at our meetings to some of the crap that we hear out there. And, we're going to do what we can, but it's going to be an uphill battle. Just, hang tough with us. We'll get to the end of it. And like I say, the only thing we've got to fear is fear itself. So with that, I'm done. I'm going to ask for a second while I put this stuff away, and we will resume. Next item on the agenda is action items. First up, discussion, consideration, action on the hiring of Mike Butler as Chief Plant Operator at the wastewater treatment plant. Council, you have before you an employment application for Mr. Michael Butler. Mr. Butler is here tonight. What we are looking to hire him on as is our Chief Plant Operator. Mr. Butler, would you like to come up and say anything, introduce yourself? I think most people know who you are, but tell us again.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for allowing me to follow that. It's always, as you put it, fun to follow. My name is Mike Butler. I'm applying for the position of Chief Plant Operator. I am a certified operator with 20 years of experience, 14 of which in a supervisor type of a position in one way or another. About 2 years ago, I left operations and became part owner of a company installing septic tanks, East Mountain Pumping and Septic, installing septic systems, designing, installing, maintaining, and repairing septic systems, and doing septic pumping. What that taught me was that's not where my passion lies. My passion lies with operations and with operating of wastewater treatment facilities, not small on-site systems. It also taught me that sometimes what you think is when you're a self-employed individual is not always what happens as a self-employed individual. So that kind of brought me back to this idea that, this is my community. I live here. I've lived here most of my life. I've gone to school here. I want to see it succeed. And as part of that, you have to have a good working infrastructure, which is the wastewater, treatment facility is part of that. I want to be a part of that wastewater treatment facility as Chief Plant Operator.
Council have any questions for Mr. Butler? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will make the motion to accept the employment of Mr. Michael Butler as Chief Plant Operator for the town of Edgewood.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the hiring of Mike Butler as Chief Plant Operator at the wastewater treatment plant. We'll do this one on a roll call vote, starting on that end. Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Counselor Abrams.
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Aye.
Thank you, council.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Thank you.
There was an echo.
Next item, discussion, consideration, and action on Resolution 2019-02, Town of Edgewood Operating Resolution. Counselors, I haven't made any changes to this. It's the same one we looked at in October, but we do have the little blue book tells us that each year you're supposed to adopt rules and regs governing our operation and conducts. That's what this is. It's pretty straightforward, haven't changed anything, and as I've told you before, if you get a hold of something, we can bring it in about any time. This is mostly housekeeping. But there it is, and I'll entertain a motion on it.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-02, Town of Edgewood Operating Resolution with 2 amendments.
Okay?
The first is under E2. I would like to see this section moved, or this item moved to Section H, quasi judicial hearings, and just adding it to the end of item 3. Here, let me
Move to H what?
take one and pass it down for me. It'll be easier. I typed it up so it's easier to read. So
E2.
So E2, and if. So the First Amendment is to address the wording of, that says members of the governing body and town staff who use electronic devices for the private exchange of information pertaining to an agenda item while a meeting is in session are deemed to be in violation of the Open Meetings Act and subject to disciplinary action as outlined in this resolution. And I think this wording had good intent, but was simply misplaced, because it's true that these types of communications cannot occur during quasi-judicial activities. So I'm suggesting to move it to Section H at the end of item 3, and just striking the quote or the phrase "are deemed to be in violation of the Open Meetings Act." And this is because the Open Meetings Act does not prevent town staff or community members from communicating with governing body members in any form.
However, Counselor, while that may be true of the Open Meetings Act, the situation we ran into, you have people carrying on a private or conversation or whatever, it's supposed to be in front of the microphone. So any communication going on back and forth there, our meetings, these ones, except for when we go into a closed session, are to be held in front of the microphone where everybody can hear everything that's said. So what we said there are deemed to be in violation is the part, it's like I say, the spirit of the Open Meetings Act, where everything is an open session should be open for everybody to hear so they can comment on or, react to.
I think, Mayor, respectfully, that this is applicable under quasi-judicial timeframes, but in our legislative capacity, we need to be able to hear from the public. And so, in any format that may be, it's important
You
that
said
we
move
can.
it to H3?
Right. H, and then add it to the end of item 3.
All witnesses shall be required to take an oath as provided by law.
Right, because I
deemed to
think
be
the
in-
point that you're making here is that discussion, and I remember discussing this with Ms. Turner at one point, discussion cannot be held privately during these quasi-judicial hearings. And so, and
Or
that would
during-
apply to the town staff as well as the public, as well as to the governing body. Now, if you have it under the legislative piece of it, that's where I just don't think that's the spirit of the Open Meetings Act. I mean, certainly it doesn't apply to the town, to the staff. Now, maybe if governing body members were texting each other, during a meeting, that could be, you know, rolling quorum or violation of Open Meetings Act. See what I mean? So, yes.
If I may, Mr. Mayor and Counselor, where it is in this document, it pertains to all conduct of meetings. So it already covers quasi-judicial. Personally, I think that it is our obligation to the people not only here in our audience, but to the people who hear the audio recordings and the people that actually look at and read our meeting minutes, that everything be up front, and that we not carry on conversations in private when we are in a public meeting, regardless. So I think where it is makes a whole lot of sense. I don't think moving it to a specific location and then having it only apply to quasi-judicial hearings, I think having it apply to all of our meetings is reasonable.
I agree.
As do I.
So this is my first suggested amendment in my motion. And again, in my viewpoint, you cannot limit discussions, well, maybe not discussions, but information anyway, from the public or the staff, because that's not what the Open Meetings Act says. That's not what it says. If anything, the Open Meetings Act is to ensure that the public can reach legislative members, okay? So, and I do think it would be prudent for us to encourage that person to come up during public comment and make their statement, or has been the case in the past where I've wanted to read something off of my phone from a community member, that would be appropriate as well. So the second piece I'm suggesting to amend is under J4, where it says participants in a closed session must be physically present and comprise a quorum of the governing body. And to this, I just wanted to suggest a compromise so that this would save the town money on attorney's fees and really getting to the heart of the language, which again, I think the intent there. This would also protect participants' rights to represent the public in closed session without the risk of disclosing information to third parties. So for J4, I'm recommending to add to the end of that sentence, unless the participant is an attorney or the participant affirms upon returning to open session for the record, they did not record the session and it was not heard by another person.
So Counselor Abraham, or Jaramillo, apologize for that. These are sort of what you brought up before, and I appreciate what you're saying and everything, but on that closed session, we had one where we tried that, and it bothered me ever after, because what we had done in that session was work to terminate an employee's employment with the town. And I felt a couple things. There could be litigation that grows out of that, and they could say something to the effect, well, this member wasn't there, they didn't know this, they didn't know that. The other thing is just the old straight up, you're going to terminate somebody's employment, you ought to look them in the eye. You ought to be there in person. If you're going to take an action that's going to put them out of a job, especially if it might be like a police officer that's put their life on the line for the town or something, I think it kind of behooves somebody to actually be there at the meeting, look them eyeball to eyeball. They may have something to say or whatever that would factor into your decision, and body language and that stuff is part of what goes into that decision.
Yes.
And I think being there, looking somebody in the eye is the decent thing to do.
So perhaps getting to the spirit of that or the heart of that, it would be better to say participants in a closed session related to personnel matters must be physically present and comprise a quorum of the governing body.
Not seeing it.
Is that what you were getting at?
No, I think you know, a closed session's a pretty big deal sometimes, and I think they ought to make a reasonable effort to be there. If they can't, and I understand that happens, you know, we go ahead without them. 4 people act instead of 5, but it was a thing there on that one, and like I say, that, the fallout from that action we took that night still hasn't all shaken out, and I'd still like to see if anything we did there factors into the actions they're taking. So, I appreciate what
So-
you're saying and stuff, but I think it's pretty good like it is until I see something pretty decent myself. I would leave it about like it is.
I did bring this forward tonight because the last time I brought it forward, you said that we just needed to get it passed and that we could re-look at it again,
As
you
we
know, at the
are.
beginning of the year. So, I know it may sound a little repetitive, but I was taking your advice, so.
No, I'm cool.
But that's.
That's what we do with these things each year. We look them over, see if there's anything needs changed. Like when we adopted it there, we had all these new places, new addresses and stuff to put up, including the electronic sign at Chili Hills. So we had stuff to, you know, change in it. And again, on that, you know, Counselor Harmio, I'm open to more further discussions with you on it, but I'm not seeing it here tonight.
Okay, Mayor, since you do have a motion on the floor, can we see if there's a second and then move to discussion and vote?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to, where are we at? To approve Resolution 2019-02, Town of Edgewood Operating Resolution.
With changes. Recommended.
With the changes to E2 and J4.
Mr. Mayor, discussion.
Yes, sir.
Well, with the exception of the first recommended change, the second recommended change does have a little bit of merit in that recording a closed session should not happen. I don't know that there needs to be an affirmation upon returning from a closed session that nothing was recorded. If recording is forbade to begin with. The use of electronic devices in section E does not say anything about recording, and that there is nothing in section H that refers to the use of electronic devices for recording purposes. It's my guess, and I will have to very carefully read the wording in the Open Meetings Act, but it is my guess that the intent was that closed sessions were indeed closed, meaning recording would be forbade.
Yeah.
And that just kind of goes without saying. If we need to say that, then we can.
I don't think that we
But
have to,
I don't see, the way this is worded currently kind of doesn't fit there, so I would offer an amendment to the way you have said that, and instead of saying, unless the participant is an attorney or the participant affirms upon returning, just simply say, the use of electronic devices in closed sessions is forbidden for recording, period. Or the use of electronic devices in closed sessions is forbidden, period.
But that doesn't answer the question. Did the participant got to be at the closed session or not?
Well, that's already H, where is it?
J4.
Or J4. I think we leave J4. And basically say that the use of electronic devices in closed session is not allowed, or forbidden, or something. I'd be happy to leave my cell phone sitting.
And all we're talking about in closed meetings is participating via telephone.
Well, I'm saying that this would be, what, what would be the designation to add this as J5, I guess. That simply, J5 would read, "The use of electronic devices in closed session is expressly forbidden."
That's what you would add, a J5?
It's a friendly amendment.
Well, I think what the mayor said is true, that, you know, my wording here was to kind of address maybe the concerns about not being physically present. So I thought maybe the concerns of not being physically present were that maybe somebody was overhearing the conversation, or that it was being recorded without the other members knowing. But then Mayor did point out, like he did state last time, that he's more concerned about, you know, seeing someone face to face in personnel matters. So then I suggested that we say, you know, participants in closed session related to personnel matters must be physically present. And so I guess if that's not what, I mean, if council wants to just say across the board, period, you have to be there in person, then we probably don't need any of this language on J4. I mean, there are instances.
Understood.
For example, my grandfather passed away. I've had to fly up to South Dakota recently here. Thankfully, the funeral was on Monday, and I was able to get back and be here for tonight. You know, but what if that had been, you know, the funeral was on Wednesday, or, you know, so I think that there's instances, and I know that it shouldn't be all the time, but I just, as well, the attorneys, like I said, in other governmental entities, I just don't believe it's prudent to require the attorney to be there in person. I've been involved in many closed sessions where the attorney just calls in, and then it's a 15-minute charge on the bill instead of, you know, the drive time and the sitting here the whole meeting and all of that. So that's why I'm just trying to get a little compromise here, you guys, to make it more practical.
Well, Counselor, respectfully, like I say, I'm not seeing it. The issues, I'm afraid, that could come out of it if we, you know, try to do the phone-in for a counselor that's not here, I'd like a little more time to see how that shakes out, that you know that nothing can go wrong with it.
Right. Okay.
You know, we just need I'd like a little more time to see how the thing works.
Then we can readdress it and
Yep.
see. Now, on E2, the First Amendment, I would like to hear from counsel, since he is here, your take on this, because I think the way it's written right now, you can't say that town staff are in violation of the Open Meetings Act, or that, you know, that governing body members getting information from the public is violation of the Open Meetings Act. That's not, it doesn't apply, if you know what I'm saying, because OMA does not say that.
Right.
Right. So I could see if we needed to put in here something about governing body members texting each other or emailing each other, that would be a violation of OMA. Yes?
But the flip side to that, Counselor, is this. So what are we going to say they're deemed in violation of?
Well, it's really not. That's my point.
Traffic code or something? In other words, if you were going to pick an act or a code that they would be deemed in violation of if they're using an electronic device for private exchange of information concerning an agenda item while a meeting is in session, about the only act or resolution or anything out there is the Open Meetings Act. And all we're saying basically is if one of our members does this, in our opinion, that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, wherein the Open Meetings Act is the act which says that during an open meeting, everything should be open.
If I may, Mayor and councilors, it's an interesting point. I have not seen any litigation involving the Open Meetings Act on this issue.
Right.
It is a problematic issue, even when, and you see it all the time on daises, you guys are really don't do it very often, but many times there'll be two counselors or two legislators or
Yep.
whomever talking during in the middle of an item, and it's always a little bit problematic because it's like, well, why are you doing that, and why isn't this happening in public? It's not per se a violation of the Open Meetings Act or a rolling quorum if only two people are talking, but it gives the appearance to the public that things are happening that they're behind their back. And that's the basic problem that I've seen with cell phone technology or computers. When you're communicating during the meeting with somebody else, the question arises in the public of whether this is something occurring that would be a violation. Is there a rolling quorum happening? Are there more than one counselor talking to each other? So it isn't per se a violation of it, but it can be a violation, and the question that it leaves in people's mind, I think, is the hard thing to overcome. Like, for example, if you want some information from Juan in a meeting, you could walk over and ask Juan or call Juan up, and he could bring you the information. When you're on your phone, no one knows what you're doing there and whether or not you're...
Violates the spirit.
Well, or it leads to an impression that there are inappropriate communications going on. It may be absolutely legitimate. It may be you're talking to your sick daughter at home and it's not a big deal. So this language, it doesn't per se violate the Open Meetings Act. It would violate your rule if you prohibit it. It would just be a violation of the rule if you chose to, that was a rule of your conduct, that you wouldn't do electronic communications during meetings. You could say it that way. But I just would caution you, do that carefully, because there are those times when there is emergencies or business being done that you need to address personally or on the phone if an emergency occurs.
And I think that it does. I think we have that part covered okay as far as emergencies, that there is some leeway there, and that's fair. But, you know, in just thinking of representing the public, take the legislature, for example. Now, I know they're not subject to Open Meetings Act, right? But in just thinking of theoretically, during session, they receive all kinds of emails. When we go up there from the Municipal League, we're going to go sometimes when they're in the middle of doing business and speak to them, or we're going to send an email, or we're going to send a text, or sometimes they'll go take phone calls, or, you know, something of that nature. So I'm just, thinking a member of the public could email and say, hey, I can't make it tonight. Will you read this statement for me? And that has happened. So I just hesitate to limit the public's access to their representative. That really concerns me.
That's why we've got the podium.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I think we discussed this quite at length back in October when it was initially revised, and I think that Section E2 was added because there had been an occasion in the past where someone here in the governing body was communicating with someone in the audience, and in the interest of transparency and keeping all our business in front of the public, I think it behooves us to prohibit that kind of communication. And I think that's what we are trying to do with this.
And Mr. Mayor and councilors, I totally understand kind of the quandary, but I think the appropriate thing to do is instruct folks as part of your communications is, if you want to make a public statement and can't be there, submit it to the town clerk so that it can be put in the record. So that's
Pretty much the top of the
right. So
agenda up here.
I get where you're going, Councilor Jaramillo, with that issue, but I think that it's best if it be dealt with so that it's there and it becomes part of the record of the meeting and is seen. But I think your point that it doesn't automatically become a violation of the Open Meetings Act is true. It's just, it would be a violation of your rules.
Right.
And you do have the ability to create a rule that would prohibit that.
Right. In other words, this is our rules amongst the five of us up here, how we do business.
Right.
Our choice of verbiage is Open Meetings Act. What else are you going to say? In other words, if somebody's found to be doing that, they're violating the spirit of the Open Meeting Act of everything is in front of the microphone. Somebody sitting out there texting somebody up here, somebody else sitting out there is not getting a chance to hear what that person's got to say.
Right, no,
should.
I understand, and there can be communications electronically that would be violations. I guess what I was getting at is all you need to say, it's a violation of your rules to
Of this
communicate
resolution.
electronically.
A violation of the operating resolution?
Yes, a violating of these rules in this operating resolution. And it,
Violation of the rules of conduct.
And so that would apply in what instance? Like, can you give me an example? So there is no way I'm going to tell my constituents to not email me during a meeting or to not text me during a meeting. So how is it that I would be in violation then?
if you're in a public meeting and there's debate occurring through sidebar like that, it can be perceived to be in violation of the Open Meetings Act because it isn't taking place in public.
So is this talking about debate?
I'm seeing this as you were on the dais, there is a piece of legislation before the board, and maybe it's as simple as during the pendency of a hearing on a matter of business before the board. I mean, if it's on a break in between matters, or if it's during public comment, then the same issue wouldn't arise. So specifically, the problem would be is if there are communications happening, it makes the other counselors and the public wonder what communications are occurring, and are they amongst the counselors, or are they amongst others?
Right, and I agree that governing body members should not be texting or emailing each other back and forth during the meeting. I think that would violate the spirit of the Open Meetings Act and this resolution. I'm just saying that, like I said before, with town staff and the public, that just doesn't apply to them.
Well, that's what actually brought us to this, Counselor. It was somebody in the public.
And did you actually find out if that person for sure was, do you know that they did what
Listen to the
you...
audio of it. Damnedest bunch of bzz, bzz, bzz you ever heard.
Can you point me in the right direction on the meeting that it was?
Can.
I know it was before my time. You said that before. So, okay, so then, again, like I stated last time, maybe that just needs to be handled on a case-by-case basis and, kind of call out that person right away instead of making a
But it's always
rule.
nice to have something in here to fall back on and say, hey, numbnuts, we got a thing that says you can't do that. I kind of like having a little bit of law behind it. And our rules, these rules we set out are our little laws that regulate what goes on up here.
Mr. Audio, did you have any other legal advice for us?
Well, I do. You have the authority to control the conduct of how the meeting occurs. If a majority of the council wishes to either allow it in certain circumstances or prohibit it during the pendency of action items on the agenda, they may do so. It's up to the board and then a majority rule of the board.
Yep. And so with that, we have a motion on the floor to approve this with two changes as put forward by Counselor Jaramillo here. The E2 one and the J4 one. If we have no further discussion, let's take a vote on that. Start on that end, Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Counselor Abrams.
Nay.
Counselor Holly.
Nay.
Got a tie vote. Mayor votes nay. Will you,
Mr.
anybody
Mayor,
entertain a motion?
Mr. Mayor, we need to have an operating resolution. I make a motion to pass operating resolution number 2019-02 as penned.
Got a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve operating resolution number 2019-02, Town of Edgewood Governing Body Annual Resolution, providing for rules governing the operation and conduct of meetings of governing body of Town of Edgewood. Start on this end, Counselor Holly,
Aye.
Counselor Abrams,
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo,
Nay.
Counselor Abraham.
Nay.
Once again, we have a tie vote, mayor votes aye. Next item on is the calendar review. Our next regular council meeting will be February 6th here, and after that, next item is a closed session. And I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to go into closed session pursuant of NMSA 1978, Section 1015-1H7 and Section 1015-1H2. The topics to be discussed are pending litigation, specifically City of Albuquerque versus State of New Mexico taxation and revenue, and limited personnel matters, specifically as it relates to the employment contract of the clerk treasurer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to go into closed session for two items. Under NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1H7, pending litigation, and also NMSA 1978, 1015-1H2, limited personnel matters. We'll start with a roll call vote on there. Counselor Abrams,
Aye. Oh.
Counselor Jaramillo,
Aye.
Counselor Abraham,
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Aye.
We're in closed session. Okay, time to come back out of closed session and re-enter open session. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to come back into open session. During closed session, only the specific items were discussed pursuant of NMSA 1978, Section 1015-1H7, and NMSA 1978, Section 1015-1H2. Specifically, the City of Albuquerque versus State of New Mexico Tax and Rev Department, and limited personnel matters regarding the employment contract of the clerk treasurer. No decisions were made in closed session.
Okay, so motion's been made to come back into open session. And
Second.
let's do the roll call vote on coming back into open session, and we'll do the affirmation. Start on that end. Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Counselor Abrams.
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Aye.
Okay, we're back in open session. Let's do the affirmations in on a roll call as well, that only those items listed on the agenda were discussed and no actions were taken. Start here. Counselor Holly.
I so affirm.
Counselor Abrams.
I so affirm.
Counselor Jaramillo.
I so affirm.
Counselor Abraham.
I so affirm.
For the mayor, I also affirm. Next item then on the agenda is an action item, discussion, consideration, action on an amendment to the employment contract of the clerk treasurer. Council, I'll entertain a motion. Anybody? All right. Item dies for lack of a motion. Next item is adjournment. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 We're adjourned.